All right, hello and welcome back to another week of Whether or Not podcast. I'm your host, meteorologist Scott Sumner. For some of us, when not having to work or travel in it, a snowstorm can be a thing of beauty. Small, large, wet or dry, whatever the conditions may be, snow formation can be quite complex. So how does a flake form? Well, snowflakes are made up of many snow crystals that are stuck together, and when moisture in the atmosphere condenses into these tiny droplets of water, moves into sufficiently colder air, those tiny droplets freeze into ice crystals. Now, as the crystals grow heavier, most begin to fall and become six-sided. The reason for the six sides is its molecular structure, and since snowflakes form in the atmosphere where conditions are very complex and variable, it is easy to say that not every snowflake will grow in the same manner. Now, this leads us to a second question, which also has to do with the way snowflakes form. The growth of snowflakes is known as crystallization, and during this process, water molecules arrange themselves in a very specific way. A good analogy would be how someone may tile their floor in a specific pattern. Once the pattern is chosen and the first tiles are placed in position, then all the other tiles must go in predetermined spaces in order to maintain the pattern of symmetry. Well, basically, water molecules do the same in nature, as they simply arrange themselves to fit the spaces and maintain symmetry. It is in this way that different arms of the snowflake are formed. In the end, there are all kinds of shapes that can arise, from prisms and needles to the familiar lacy snowflakes. So don't be surprised if an odd-shaped flake falls from above, as water is a pretty amazing substance. Now, when it comes down to it, most snowflakes are tiny, less than 1/2 an inch across, but some could get up to 2 inches wide or more if certain conditions are present. Now, those conditions are usually temperature range, wind, and an unstable atmosphere. And what do I mean by an unstable atmosphere? Well, that would be when a storm bringing warmer, more humid air into a region meets a region that is quite cold. Now, the clash of air masses within the storm would begin to melt the ice crystals within it, causing them to bond together into larger flakes. When the thermometer ranges between -5 to -10 degrees Fahrenheit, there is less moisture in the air, so one sees smaller and drier flakes. As the temperature gets a little bit warmer, say around 32 degrees or even higher, the potential to see larger and wetter flakes are more common. This wet snow, which sticks together easily, is good for making snowmen, while the dry snow is ideal for snow sports, but is more likely to drift in windier weather. Now, when talking about the color of snow, contrary to popular belief, it is translucent and not white. What does that mean? Well, snow is actually colorless, as light does not pass through it easily, but instead is rather reflected, and it's the light reflected off a snowflake surface that creates its white appearance. Now, the reason we see objects as colors is because some wavelengths of light are absorbed while others are reflected. Remember, light is a spectrum of color after all. The object takes on whatever color light is reflected. So, for example, if the sky is blue because the water or the blue wavelengths are reflected while other colors are absorbed. Now, since snow is made up of so many tiny surfaces, the light that hits it is scattered in many directions and will actually bounce around from one surface to the next as it's reflected. This means no wavelength is absorbed or reflected with any consistency, so the white light bounces back as the color white. With all that is known about snow, one may ask, why do weather forecasters have so much trouble forecasting it? Well, to be truthful, snow forecasts are much better today than they were many years ago. Yet the difficulty lies in trying to predict the area of heaviest snowfall for two reasons. For the first reason, it would be that the heaviest snowfall can fall in between reporting weather stations where no official weather measurements of snow takes place. And secondly, the extremely small temperature differences that define the boundary line between snow and rain are sometimes hard to come by. Well, despite the vicissitudes of nature, it is enjoyable to be in a field that can be so challenging and yet so much fun. Well, that does it for this week's podcast. In the meantime, God bless, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.